Orsolya Gaal. Regardless of how inappropriate a romantic relationship may be, people still find solace, comfort, and love in these partners. They enjoy the person's company and the joy they bring into their lives. But in Orsolya Gaal's case, this inappropriate relationship blew up in her face. At around 8 a.m. on the 16th of April, 2022, Glenn Von Nostrand was walking his dogs along Forest Park in Queens, New York, when the dogs began reacting strongly to something in the area. Nordstrand stopped walking because he had no idea why his dogs suddenly went hysterical. The dogs then dragged him as they sprinted towards a strange, abandoned Bauer duffel bag close by. Nordstrand's suspicions heightened when he noticed the bag drenched in blood. He opened it to have a peek and saw a female body in a fetal position inside. He couldn't see the body properly because of the position it assumed, and besides, he was too stunned to believe it was a human, so he convinced himself it was a mannequin for an experiment. However, upon closer look, he noticed the clothing on the body and its structure, and it began to dawn on him that it might be a body after all. He called 911 to report what he stumbled across, but before the police arrived, his dogs had picked up a trail of blood, which they followed. When the police arrived, they followed the dog's lead. The trail led them to the affluent Forest Hill neighborhood, just a few blocks from where the body was found. Ultimately, the dogs stopped at a home where the deceased woman resided. The woman was 51-year-old Orsolya Gaal, a mother to 2 teenagers whom her 13-year-old son had seen hale and hearty the previous day. Reports revealed that she had been stabbed about 58 times. No stranger or home invader would execute such overkill. It's usually someone familiar to the victim, most times a close family member. The burning questions soon came up. What familiar face murdered Gaal, and what could have brought about such bitterness that would lead to them doing something so heinous? When police searched the home, they found the murder weapon, a knife, in the basement. After examining other evidence in the house, detectives concluded that Gaal had been murdered in her home, and only her 13-year-old son, Leo, was home at the time. There was no sign of forced entry either. To top it off, the duffel bag she was stuffed in belonged to Leo. Police had no other option than to take him in for questioning. Leo said his dad and older brother were away for the weekend to check for suitable colleges, while he and his mom were left at home. On the 15th of April, just a day before Gaal met her ill fate, she informed Leo that she was attending a night show at Lincoln Center in Manhattan. Just as she stated, she attended the show that night with friends and got back to the neighborhood around 11:30 p.m. However, she didn't go home immediately. Surveillance footage showed her in a local bar waiting for someone, but the person never showed up. She then left the bar and arrived back home at around 12:20 a.m. on the 16th of April. There was no evidence of her leaving her home after she retired inside at 12:20 a.m. The next clue police got was surveillance footage showing a man dragging that duffel bag with her body down the street in her neighborhood at 4:15 a.m. later that morning. Then, the blood-soaked bag was discovered at 8 a.m. After coming up with this timeline of events and following other investigations, Leo was allowed to return home. They had no information on the man seen with the duffel bag, so they put up a reward of $3,500 for anyone who had any tangible information that could lead to this anonymous man. While they were trying to catch the murderer, Gaal's husband, Howard Klein, was panicking. He had received petrifying text messages from his wife's cell phone, which was being used by an individual suspected to be her killer. One of the messages read, "Your wife sent me to jail years back. I'm back. Your whole family is next." He was scared for his family and was convinced that the killer was coming after them. The pressure from Klein made police work faster on the case. They soon discovered that she had conversed on the phone with 3 men around the time she was murdered. One of these calls stood out. The call was to an AC handyman, 44-year-old David Bonola, who used to work on the family's house. They had been using Bonola's services for about 2 years, but why was he conversing with Gaal at odd night hours? Police figured that such a person could have knowledge on how to gain entry into the family home without having to break in, perhaps with a spare key or under the pretense of fixing some AC problem in the house. Just as they were working to bring him in for questioning, he saved them the stress and approached them himself. He casually said, "I heard you were looking for me." Bonola made detectives work easy as he made some incriminating sentences during questioning. With a little nudge from the detectives, he confessed to murdering Gaal. According to Bonola, he and Gaal had been having an on and off affair for over 2 years, from when he started making repairs in her home. Just a few days before the murder, she had ended the relationship with him, but he assumed it was just one of the many breaks they took before they went right back into the romantic relationship. However, he was wrong, as she had made up her mind to end it for good this time around. The realization soon hit Bonola, and he was desperate to get back together with her. He added that he found out that she had infected him with HIV, meaning that she was cheating on him. He was more furious about her not being loyal to him than him contracting HIV from her. He told detectives, "She lied to me, and she used me. She told me she loved me, but that she couldn't be with one person. She took a phone call from another guy, and she said she was going to see him. That made me angry. I couldn't accept it. Then I saw her with Carlos, another guy." Reacting to this, he requested to talk to her, which she agreed to. Detectives believe she had scheduled them to meet at the bar, and he was the one she was waiting for, but he never showed up. He lurked around her house instead until she arrived home. Detectives aren't sure whether she let him in or he had access to a spare key with which he entered the house. He claimed he planned to talk to her and rekindle their relationship, but things went south. The two of them got into a heated argument in the basement of the house after he accused her of infecting him with HIV. Gaal reportedly told him she didn't have the virus. She added that she didn't want anything to do with him and made it clear that she didn't want to see him anymore. He claimed he refused to leave the house because he still wanted the relationship, but Gaal grabbed a knife, threatening to kill him if he didn't leave her home. Still, he didn't budge and remained in the place. He claimed she kept saying she hated him and even stabbed him in the left hand. He then snatched the knife from her and slashed her in the throat. She didn't collapse immediately, as the two of them struggled for the knife and fell to the ground. Without giving it a second thought, he went on to stab her a total of 58 times in the torso, neck, left arm, fingers, and hand. It appeared like he just kept stabbing all over the upper body until he got tired, even though she was long dead. It was a crime of passion. He used towels from the home to clean up the blood on the floor and walls of the basement. He stuffed her body in Leo's hockey bag, which he found lying around, then proceeded to drag the bag on its wheels to where it was found. During the scuffle, murder, and cleanup, 13-year-old Leo was asleep in his bed upstairs. Detectives believe the murder was not premeditated, as Bonola used items in the house to commit the murder. To cover up the murder, he took the body out of the house, but still left a trail of blood all the way to where it was dumped. Generally, it was a sloppy crime. He took her phone and computer from the home. He used the phone to send out text messages to her husband before tossing it and the laptop into the Hudson River. He said he chose the river because it was near where he and Gaal were meant to celebrate their anniversary. In addition to his confession, investigators found his jacket worn during the murder near the body in Forest Park. From his statements, they had learned that he had visited a hospital on Saturday to treat wounds on his hands, probably sustained from the struggle between him and Gaal. A bloody print of a pair of boots found in Gaal's home also matched Bonola's boots. The mountain of evidence kept piling up, and the police had him. He was charged with second-degree murder, first-degree criminal tampering, and fourth-degree criminal possession of a weapon. Despite the pieces of evidence against him, he pled not guilty. The prosecution claimed they wanted him to take responsibility for his actions, so he was offered a plea deal, which her family also consented to. The deal required him to plead guilty to manslaughter instead of murder, limiting his jail time to 25 years and 5 years of supervision after his eventual release. He accepted the deal and retracted his initial plea. He pled guilty to manslaughter, after which Queen's Supreme Court Justice Michael Alois announced that he would be sentenced on the 16th of November, 2022. Orsolya Gaal was a Hungarian who moved to the United States. She attended the Budapest Business School College of International Management and Business. She met her husband, Howard Klein, and they had 2 boys together. Gaal decided not to work and instead be a stay-at-home mom to their boys. She had raised her boys to the ages of 17 and 13 before the unfortunate event where Bonola rid them of their mother. Even at age 51, she had a lot to look forward to. Her children's high school and college graduations, and her grandchildren. All of this went away in a single swoop. David Bonola was a Mexican immigrant who had been living in the country illegally for 20 years, but was making an honest living. The inappropriate romantic relationship and Bonola's obsession and impulsive nature took them down a dark path, with Gaal losing her life and Bonola losing 25 years of his life to jail.